Hello and welcome to this episode of Voices of Fostering, where today I'm delighted to be joined by a foster carer who's actually been on the podcast before, and he's coming back to tell us about something a little bit different that him and his husband have been up to. So welcome back, Robert. Hello, Robert.
Hello, Helen. Lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Robert, you've been on the podcast before. We've spoken to you all about your fostering journey. You and your husband David, but you and your husband David have got some hidden talents, haven't you? As you both are children's authors. So, can you tell us a little bit about that and how you got into it?
Well, I think probably, we feel that everybody's got some stories inside them. I think my husband more than most, maybe. I've always been interested in writing myself. But I'm kind of a starter, and I find it really hard to finish them off. But David is very, very skilled in that, and he to finish the story, thankfully. So our first book was Itch the Witch and a Chicken Called Chad, and this came about from kind of a bit of a reevaluation of our life during COVID, as a lot of people did.
Yeah.
And we kind of thought, I think there's more that we can be doing, and perhaps bringing a little bit of our own interests in. So David writes the stories, I illustrate them, and he scans my illustrations in, and he creates these amazing pictures from them, which I could never draw all in one go. And we wanted to be able to give something happy and creative to the world after a time that was really, really, obviously a really hard time for everybody.
So, what sort of stories are they, Robert? And what sort of themes do they touch on?
Well, we love a story with a theme, and Itch the Witch and a Chicken Called Chad is all about a witch, not surprisingly, but she doesn't use her power for good. She uses it to get her own way. And to be honest, at the beginning of the story, she's a bit of a bully. So this story is all about the kind of misuse of power, kind of bullying, and the power of friendship and the power of forgiveness. So the characters in the story rally around poor Farmer James, who's been cursed by Itch, and they set off to teach Itch the error of her ways. And in the end, they actually all become friends. By the second story, Itch the Witch has become the teacher at the Academy for Broomstick Craft. She is now good and helps people with her magic rather than trying to get her own way. And this story is all about focusing on her daughter, Switch. Now, Itch wants her to grow up to be the greatest witch the world has ever known. However, Switch harbours a bit of a secret because she doesn't want to be a witch. She wants to be a farmer. So she's a little bit worried that her mum will be disappointed. So this is a story all about kind of your identity and being it's okay to be who you want to be and all of those kinds of things.
And do you find, Robert, that after you've read a book like this with a child, it does spark some conversations and it sparks their imagination?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really nice to start the series of books so the children can kind of see the continuing adventures of Itch the Witch. But it's really nice to have stories that are about important issues, moral kind of dilemmas and all those sorts of things, but that's not the most prominent feature in them. At the heart of these stories, there's lovely characters that are having an adventure, and hopefully the children enjoy the kind of illustrations of them. We've made those illustrations relatively kind of simple and naive because we're hoping the children will enjoy having a go at drawing them themselves. So it's all there for the children to really engage in the whole world and understand the difference between right and wrong, but in a very subtle way rather than having it kind of hammered home to them.
And you have a story as well, Robert, Weber and the Wall Banger, which has fostering at the heart of it, doesn't it? So tell us about that.
Weaver and the Wallbanger is available on our website, actually, as a free audio story. So our website is www.hummypress.co.uk. That's Hummy just like Mummy, but with an H. And Weaver and the Wallbanger is about a pair of aliens who are based loosely upon our two pet cats. And they befriend a young girl called Meg. So Meg is fostered and she becomes very, very good friends with Weaver and the Wallbanger. And then sadly, Meg is moved away from her home and she moves to somewhere else. Obviously, Weaver and the Wallbanger are very, very upset about this because they can't find their friend. They don't know where she's gone. But they use the Soundscope to track her down and they find her. And I suppose it's the first in a series of stories. And this first one is kind of setting that scene about family being whoever you choose it to be. It doesn't have to be people that you're related to. It can be those really, really important people in your life who do special things for you and who look after you and who are there for you no matter what. And that's what the heart of that story.
And when you've read this story too, or a looked after child has read it themselves, what sort of impact has it had on them, Robert?
But I think with the kind of impact that we've seen is that it's is that recognition of them being seen, of them, something, we've read it with children and we've listened to it rather because it's on the website. We've listened to it and they kind of resonated with the fact that, oh yeah, I don't live with my mummy and my daddy. I live with such and such. And actually that's been really magical to see happen. The fact that they see themselves in that story, and they feel recognized and seen. Because I think that's, you don't have that many stories where the children are fostered, and that's okay. Often it's a big problem, maybe, that the children need to be fostered because this has happened or that's happened. And actually, this was just in a very positive light, the fact that you can be fostered, and it means that you've got a bigger family. You've got other people that care about you, as well as your own biological family as well.
And Robert, you say these stories are on your website, hummypress.co.uk, and they're free audio books for people to listen to. In particular, the Weaver and the Wallbanger is. How important was it for you and your husband to make sure that stories like that are accessible to everybody, that there's no barriers?
Oh, so important. Not everybody can afford a book. Books are expensive. Not everybody can, find a way to get to the library necessarily to borrow a book, or that can be quite a pressured thing to go to the library and to take a book out and to have to take it back and all that kind of thing. So we wanted something there, knowing that lots of children like going online and that's quite easy and accessible for families. We wanted to have these stories there available free so that people could enjoy. We've got sound effects and things in them, so they kind of bring the world to life. We've got lots of spooky Duke stories on there as well for slightly older children. So they're kind of stories with kind of modern fairy tales with maybe a bit of a moral or a message through them. One that comes to mind is the story called Theresa Green, all about the environment and the fact that you need to be kind to Mother Nature, otherwise she's not going to be kind back. And we've also got another story written, not by ourselves actually, but written by an author called Zoe Patel, which is all about a monster who's allergic to people. So it's called Flo Can't Eat People. And that's another one where those children see themselves recognised, those children with any number of allergies. But it's a fun story. It's not just, so you've got allergies kind of book. It's actually about a monster who's allergic to eating people. So she ends up being vegetarian in the end, and having a very happy time of it in the end. But it's just touching on those things where the children can then kind of say, oh yeah, I can't have dairy produce, or I don't eat the same meat as you. I halal meat, which is not an allergy. It's a cultural tradition. But those sorts of moments where the children can see that there might be differences between us, but actually there are there's lots that's similar too.
Absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing this with us, Robert. And of course, as you've said, everything can be accessed on your website, which is hummypress.co.uk. So, yeah, thanks so much for chatting to us and best of luck with the future with your writing.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Helen. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Voices of Fostering. If you'd like to find out more, head online and search National Fostering Group and make this the year you foster.